Okay, welcome into it. Favorite bands, A to Z, and we're on Q now. And Q is probably the easiest letter so far for me. Um, though I could think of, I could think of a couple other bands, but there were four major ones, and four that I have, some stuff in my collection, which always means it's an artist I like enough to purchase some physical media from. So Q bands, uh, well, the winner is going to be, a lot of people aren't going to see this coming, though I think I mentioned them in another video, and I sure listen to them enough. They find their way in a lot of my playlists. Their discography isn't very big. They only had about 2.5 albums, like 2 full lengths and 1 EP, in their heyday, and then they came back like 17 or 18 years later. And they actually have a new one coming out really soon, so this is kind of timely. Quicksand, New York post-hardcore band Quicksand. I love Quicksand. And I think this album is the only reason why I pick them over the runner-up band, which you'll see in a second. And then everyone's probably shouting at their screen, Queen, man! Queen! Where's your Queen? I love Queen. Yeah, and I didn't really grow up with them, and I will admit that Freddie Mercury is probably the best singer in rock music. He's not my personal favorite, but he is probably the best, technically, and everything. But yeah, I gotta go with these guys. I love these guys' music, and I wouldn't be honest with myself if I chose Queen anyway. Yeah, this is just balls to the wall, great post-hardcore music. It's heavy, but it's kind of catchy too. Like, Walter has some good melodies here. The bass playing is so immaculate, and the rhythm section in particular is so muscular. They were a 4-piece back in these days, at least, and yeah, there's just so much like heaviness, but they have really good choruses. Um, Phaser is definitely like a genre highlight. Phaser in the Head to Wall is just seamless. Dine Alone, what a great single. Freezing Process, Omission, the whole thing's great. So yeah, Quicksand is the pick for favorite Q bands, and this release is my favorite release from them. The runner-up, if Slip didn't exist and the rest of Quicksand's discography existed, then Quicksand would have to probably be the runner-up, because their other albums are good to great. Manic Compression is great, but yeah, that's the classic. And if that didn't exist, Queens of the Stone Age wouldn't nab or they would nab the top spot. But yeah, I love me some Queens of the Stone Age, and I love every one of their albums. I'm not one of those people that just liked when Nick was in the band, or didn't like Villains or whatever. When Era Vulgaris came out, I wasn't a huge fan of that, but other than one song off it, I love the whole thing, and I love every one of their other albums. But I had to really go with Songs for the Deaf as my favorite release from them. I just love, the production does sound a little too lo-fi, I guess, for the material, but it's supposed to, because it's supposed to sound like you're tuning in on a radio station, like on a desert drive somewhere or something. And it definitely accomplishes that. But yeah, it is weird when you put this when you put songs from this on a playlist, and it comes between two like really well produced rock songs or whatever. But it works. It's kind of, I don't know, it kind of works. Like, it's muffled, but it works. And of course, Mark Lanigan was in the group. He's kind of always in and out of the group. It's always a treat to hear his lead vocals. He's only really fronted a few Queens of the Stone Age songs, but he's on a couple. One of these, Nick sings a few, and they're just intense, like Millionaire, also known as You Think I Ain't Worth a Dollar, but I Feel Like a Millionaire. And Dave Grohl on drums. Like, having him on the Skins, wow. He added a lot of muscle to this band. Him and Josh are friends, obviously. But yeah, and then Nick, of course, he had a bunch of problems and left right after this So Lullabies to Paralyze, a lot of people really don't like that one because it's a very different kind of lineup again. But he wasn't even a founding member. Like, you know, people were all acting like if he's not in the group shouldn't exist. Kind of like when Lindsey Buckingham isn't in Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks isn't in. They go, oh, well, there's no this band without that one person. It's like, but both bands were formed even without those people. Like, they all came along later. So, of course Queens of the Stone Age can exist without Nick. Like, of course they can. And Lullabies to Paralyze is great. It's definitely a different sound than this, but I do have to go with the popular consensus. I do think this one is really, really consistent. And, but yeah, like I said, I love all the Queens of the Stone Age. You know, Villains was a treat. You know, it's a popular production, but I really liked that one, and a lot of people didn't. Same thing for Lullabies. So yeah, that's Quicksand and Queens of the Stone Age. But yeah, you gotta mention Queen. You gotta mention them, right? You gots to. And then Quarashi is my other honorable mention. So they're from Iceland, and they were kind of doing the whole rap rock thing. They kind of sounded like Icelandic Beastie Boys, and I think that's why I latched onto them in about 2000 and 2001. And I remember playing Midtown Madness on my computer, and they were all over my playlist, like stuff from their major label album, which they only had one major label. Everything else was independent release, but the stuff on those indie releases was just as fun, just as good, catchy, intense, you know. They always sounded like they were kind of dissing you with their rhymes, like you ain't got no game. So they're kind of like a more aggressive Beastie Boys, like Beastie Boys meets Rage Against the Machine, but without the political stuff. So, yeah, love Quarashi. But speaking of Rage Against the Machine, tomorrow is going to be our bands, so see if they place or how they place, and see what else is in there, you know. Will it be Rage, or Red Hot Chili Peppers, or Rolling Stones, or Lou Reed, or who's in there? So we'll see tomorrow, and feel free to comment on your favorite Q bands, or get mad at me that Queen was only in the honorable mentions. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and peace out. We'll see you in another video.